the Duux Whisper 2. I've seen this product multiple times over the years and they really stepped up their game. The build quality is something they really changed for the better here. In the box we'll find the manual, the remote, the necessary installation parts, and of course the fan itself. Keep in mind that the hex tool is hidden inside the base. I did search way too long for that one. Installation takes a little more time since the head isn't ready to go, but luckily it isn't all that hard. So just follow the manual and you're done within 5 minutes. This new Model 2 comes in two colors, white and gray. And new with this model is that the colors are now matte instead of glossy, which does give it a more premium-ish feel. On the front panel, you can see that the white is matched with a very subtle gray. And on the gray model, it has such a contrast on there as well, so it may look like one color, but it's actually a very subtle mix. Something else which I noticed right away was the build quality. It feels much stronger and more stable than the previous generations. And because I can look at my previous videos as a reference, I am 100% sure it's not just in my head. To adjust the height on the Duux Whisper 2, you can press a button at the back and you will be able to increase or decrease the total height, which is also done much smoother than on the first models. I remember back in the day it was very difficult actually, and it would pop out at a great speed because it was spring loaded. Here it's so much more in line with a premium build product, and I couldn't be happier that they've actually listened to this feedback. They even replaced the remote accessory with a magnetic spot on the handle at the back, which works perfect and has strong magnets. The remote will also be in line with the color fan you bought, so no black remote on the white fan. Sadly though, as far as functionality goes, it's still only usable with a direct line towards the fan itself. So if your couch is a little bigger and the fan is behind that part of the couch, you cannot control it with the remote. You need to actually see the base to control it. Talking about the controls on the base, they've gotten massive upgrades as well. Where before you could feel every step when rotating it, here it's stepless in its design, which feels much more premium in comparison to the older models. It's also a lot less shaky and feels sturdier and well made. There's also a difference when you turn on the night mode, because now it turns off all sounds, dims the display on the base and turns off the display after a few seconds to make your room completely dark instead of the annoying white LEDs like on some other models. From either the remote or the controls on the base, you can now select one of three modes: natural wind, regular wind, and the night mode we just went over. The night mode doesn't change the wind speed or sound produced though, so it's basically the natural wind or normal wind, mimicking nature's winds, which constantly change in strength. Once again, there's 26 wind speeds on this one, which to me still feels a little unnecessary, as you don't really feel the difference from setting 1 to 2 for example, but for those that really want the perfect breeze, this could be the model for you. There's also a timer, which you can set from 12 to 1 hour. For if you want to leave it on while you're away for example. On this fan, there's also the option to have oscillation both vertically and horizontally. And especially if you have both on, it really blows wind in every direction. Then there is also the Duux Whisper Flex, which is basically the bigger brother. As in, it will still have all the features from the regular Whisper 2, but adds features to make it worthwhile. Firstly, it makes the installation process a little easier, since the pole is now easily clicked into the base, and after the fan head is assembled, you can just click that into the pole too. The pole is therefore straight and not thicker towards the base, as with the Whisper 2, because that one has adjustable height. Here, you can just click out the fan head, and instead of the middle pole being attached to the base, you can attach the fan head to it directly, which will then make it a tabletop fan instead of a standing one. Along with the usual stuff, you will also find a fancier remote, the charge dock, and of course the battery. Now, previously, the battery and charging dock were not that well designed. I remember the battery falling out while putting it in and not really giving that feedback you want from a battery, where you know it's securely in there. And the charging dock was a hit or miss. You would even have to push on the top in order for it to start charging. But luckily, with the new versions, all of that is fixed too, and you love to see it. The battery isn't falling out any longer. It is secured in there, and the charging dock works perfectly fine every time you place the fan on top of the charger. No misses any longer. The wind speeds of this fan will be reduced to 15 from 26 when using only the battery, which is more than enough, I'd say. The manual, which is now partly digital to reduce waste, states it will have 12 hours of battery life without oscillation on fan speed 1, around 8 hours on fan speed 10, and around 6 hours on fan speed 15, which is very good. It will be halved by having oscillation on though, but I think that's totally fair and decent usage. The remote looks a lot better, relatively speaking, to the ones from the Whisper 2, but they do pretty much the same thing. And one is not better than the other when talking about functionality. Even this one is unusable if you don't have a direct line of sight with the Duux base. Now make sure you check out my fan comparison as well, where I go over the differences with the most popular models, power consumption, features that differ, and much more.